It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley, continuing coverage of the Democratic National Convention. Gary, how are you?
I'm doing good, and look, I understand that people will expect us to bring up the lies that were told last night. I think in order to be fair, because we're nothing if we're not fair.
Right.
Then we're nothing.
Yeah, exactly. I'm okay with that. Welcome to my life.
I think we need to pick the audio cut where Biden told the absolute truth.
Oh yeah. All right.
All right.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Here we go.
Here we go.
All right.
Kamala and I are committed to strengthening legal immigration.
Yeah.
Kamala and I are committed, and you and I went over it. We actually we said, okay, is he saying legal or illegal? And clearly he said illegal. So Kamala and I are committed to strengthening illegal immigration.
You and I have a combined over 80 years as audio engineers. Don't tell anybody, it's not a real thing. Audio engineer. There actually are audio engineers, but just stay on focus. And we listened to it at least 3 times. He said illegal immigration.
He said illegal. Kamala and I are committed to strengthening illegal immigration.
Yes.
The Democrats, and we think it's very important because we tell you, for example, yesterday, what you heard is the Charlottesville lie again.
Mm-hmm.
You heard the suckers and losers lie again, and you heard the bleach lie again.
Right.
And so it's important.
And the bloodbath lie.
The bloodbath lie.
He promised a bloodbath.
Right.
That's a lie.
Right. All lie. And when you see that those 4 big things that are top of mind that they have to promote are all lies, you understand the situation in the Democrat Party right now.
Yeah.
You understand it. But I guess to start out, and it was funny because I said it to you as soon as you came in, and you said, wow, Brett Baer just said that on Fox.
Yeah.
I said, where's the joy?
It was so funny because right as I'm listening to Fox News on my way in, and Biden had just finished like moments before that. And right before I turned my truck off, Brett Baer was saying, yeah, there wasn't much joy in that speech. He said, I think, you know how Brett Baer is, very careful with his words sometimes, but he's making the solid point. He does a good job at it. And he says it was reminiscent. He seemed to be in the State of the Union mode.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that
right.
shouting mode? And it sounded like a lot of anger and not much joy. And I come in and you said, where's the joy? It was just like a few seconds later. And that's what you heard, this shouting. And then you said something. Look, they preempted him, you said to me, and, I was just walking into the room. You said, look, they preempted him clearly. And everybody, I was watching it for a long time. Everybody was, all right, when's he coming on? When's he coming on? And a number of people made the case that they know he doesn't do well after 8 p.m., and he didn't go on stage till nearly 11:30 Eastern.
They didn't. Yeah, clearly the whole point was they didn't want the public to see him.
They did not want a big audience.
Right.
Because here's the thing. Are you going to wait up for Joe Biden?
No.
You're not.
No.
You're not going to wait up until 11:30 for Joe Biden. That's not going to happen. It was clear then. It was clear, I think, throughout that time that, basically everybody was waiting. And then someone, who was it that tried to start the chant, "We love you, Joe. We love you, Joe. We love you, Joe." The same people that that kicked him to the curb. "We love you, Joe. We love you, Joe." It's contrived. It also, again, your keynote speaker, as late as it was. By the way, did he finish technically on Tuesday morning?
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, Eastern, it was past midnight.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
He did speak early morning. We were right. It was tonight what you saw, and it wasn't just from Joe Biden. You saw anger, AOC, other speakers. There was no joy on that stage. There was none. None. And if you're trying to push the whole joy thing, you got a bad start, because the entire night was angry faces, AOC with her jumping up and down while she's talking. She thinks she's a rock star. Sorry, it's over, AOC. You're an oppressor now, remember?
I thought what was interesting over the last couple of days, because you had some pushback from, the Democrats, who obviously kicked Biden to the curb.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy Pelosi, it's his decision. Like, well, the kidnapper calls you and says, we have your child.
Right.
And they say, you must deposit $1 million or you don't get your child back.
Right.
And so you go and you deposit the $1 million, and the police come back at you and say, sorry, we're not going to investigate this crime here because you voluntarily, it was your choice to go and pay the ransom.
Right. Right.
Everyone knows, and we said it from the very beginning.
It was a simple business transaction. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a simple business transaction. Exactly.
Right. Nothing wrong here.
Everyone knows that they threatened him and said, all of your money goes away. You can't win.
Right.
So either you drop out or you have nothing.
Right.
You won't be able to have the money to run a campaign.
Because by that time, the stories were that there was $100 million or more on the sidelines from major donors that was not going anywhere.
Right, and then the threat that if he doesn't pull out, we're going to pull.
Yeah,
we're going to pull even more out.
Even more.
90 to 100 million had already been committed, had been pulled at that time.
Right. And
they said, we're pulling everything.
Right.
You're not going to be able to run.
Right.
They threw him to the side. It was not voluntarily. They said, we're your party, and we're going to ensure that you don't have the money to win a campaign. You're losing already now. You're going to lose in the biggest landslide ever because you're not going to have the money. And I will give Chris Wallace credit. He talked about it last night.
All right.
On CNN. Here we go.
Well, the word that everybody is using to describe tonight is bittersweet. It's just bitter. The fact of the matter, I'm not saying Joe Biden is bitter, but, it's like you've been thrown out a window, and as you're falling, you go, gee, it's nice out here. No, he got thrown out of a window, and basically he was forced. There's going to be a lot of talk tonight about how generous it was of him and selfless of him. He was basically forced out by Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama and Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. And I suspect even the fact that there has been this surge of enthusiasm since he left and Kamala Harris took his place, that's got to be pretty tough, too. You got thrown out of a window and everybody's applauding the person who's now in the room.
Everybody's applauding the person who threw you out the window.
Yeah, exactly. Yay!
And let me get to this is Scott Jennings on CNN also. Here we go.
This is his moment tonight. It's his moment, Scott.
Yeah, Biden is known in his career as being one of the best eulogy givers at funerals. And now they're making him come and give his own career.
He has files of every eulogy.
Yeah,
he's ever
and now they're making him give his own eulogy at this convention. I mean,
you have to give one. It's best that you get to give your own.
Yeah, I guess. I am anxious to see how they handle it. It's a sticky wicket. I mean, he was bullied out of this race after 52 years of service to the Democratic Party, and it wasn't all about his age. He was unpopular. He was going to lose. It was Afghanistan. It was inflation. It was immigration. And now, and he had to be dragged out by the fingernails. I'm sorry. This is not, so he's not here in a happy moment, okay? I know that this yarn that's being spun in this hall that he was popular and selfless and handing on. No. It is the opposite, and everybody knows it, and yet the Democrats are engaging in this theater of looking into cameras and saying it. So it's not true.
Yeah. I mean, that's – and as I'm listening to Biden, and there were a couple of moments you'll probably hear sound bites of him saying, or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe the liberal media is just done with them and they don't use anything. But if there are any sound bites taken away, it'll be, I'll be the best volunteer that Harris and Walz have ever had.
I don't think they'll play that.
They may not, and they may just ignore everything.
Well, the reason they won't play that is they don't want Biden's support.
Well, that's what was going through my mind when I said maybe they just move on and don't. If they play another part of it, if they play anything else, or if they play anything, they'll play that what I just mentioned, and they'll play I gave you my best. And I thought to myself, yeah, finish the sentence. I gave you my best, and each one of you kicked me to the curb.
Yeah.
So it doesn't fly. It doesn't work.
Well, it's interesting because Maureen Dowd in her column, again, another Democrat, as you know, wrote in the New York Times that, they're ticked off big time. I mean, the Bidens are actually really ticked off that this is happening. And Chris Wallace saying the exact same thing. You can't hide it. I mean, but again, they're lying about everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of the euphoria is we have a chance. I think the Democrats are thinking we can't promote anything that we believe. Now, you did have Harris come out with the first thing on her platform, which is raise corporate taxes. And we had talked about this yesterday. This is logical. This is what the Democrats do, but they frame it as if you raise corporate taxes, you'll get it from those mean corporations, where actually it is a stealth tax on the consumer that hurts the poor the most. Democrats love hidden taxes that hit the poor and the middle class and hurt them the most. They love it. And one of the reasons they love it is because they've been able to convince the poor and the middle class who vote for them that they're punishing the corporations. They look at the citizens of this country that have to pay those taxes in higher prices and say, you're a bunch of suckers. You'll buy anything that we're selling to you. We're actually hurting you, and you're cheering us, and we're lying to you.
Yeah.
And what you saw yesterday was just lie after lie. But I think there's an excitement with Democrats that if we can win this election and we don't have a platform, we cannot stand by what she did in her administration. We don't know where to go anywhere except to attack and lie about the other candidate. And nobody likes where we stand on the issues. And if we can win this, how can we ever lose another presidential election again?
Right.
If we can win this, if it's that close. Now, David Axelrod said yesterday that if the former Obama person that if the election was held today, he believes Trump would win. And that's a problem, for her right now because she hasn't said anything. She really hasn't. She hasn't done interviews or she hasn't done a press conference. By the way, Trump should pull out of the debates. She said she won't do Fox. He should pull out. I don't think it's going to hurt Trump if he pulls out. We said we want to be fair here, and she won't do any. She's only doing it on the media that's friendly to her. I would pull out. Right. I don't think it matters.
Right. At the very least, I choose one, you choose one.
Right.
Even if they don't do three.
Right. And Trump didn't say that. I read on True Social.
No,
he just said she's pulled out of the Fox News. I don't know why, the campaign won't, unless he believes, like Biden, that she can't hold up in a debate.
On any stage.
Right. But I'm telling you, it's going to be a different ball game here on the ABC one. It's going to be absolutely.
Yeah, the moderators are going to do so much of the lifting.
It's going to be 2 to 3 to 1.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
and the questions are going to be asked. Yep. I wouldn't right now. I might do it, but I would tell them now. I would start this. If you don't do If you don't do, we should. This needs to be fair. I'll do. We'll both do Fox and ABC, whatever.
Right.
If NBC's left out of it, fine. But we're going to do 2 at least and 1 on.
Yep. I pick one. You pick one.
Right.
I'll agree to yours. You agree to mine, or it's off.
Yeah, or it's off, and he won't do it. And so I don't know if they're looking at this the same way as they're looking at Biden, but she's not Biden.
Well, the fact is that
I'm not saying she's good. I'm just saying she's not Biden.
She'll have a lot more assistance than he did. The moderators will be doing a lot of the heavy lifting for her on the ABC or NBC debates.
We got a great show ahead. 866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Keep your engine humming in the heat this summer by keeping up with preventive maintenance. Think your PM is complete after your oil is changed? Think again. There's grease, transmission fluids, and gear oil to consider too. Grease, for example, is made of oil, thickener, and additives. It provides rust protection by preventing water spray-off and wash-off on equipment like the universal joint, fifth wheel, and clutch throw-out bearings. It also helps protect major greasing points like tie rod ends, spring pin bushings, kingpin, and the chassis. Today's synthetic oils means more miles between engine oil changes, but greasing intervals aren't growing at the same pace. Your fifth wheel, for example, needs to be greased every 15,000 miles or monthly.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know what my favorite part was yesterday of the DNC? It was Jamie Raskin. Who lost. Either he lost his place on the teleprompter or the teleprompter went blank.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And listen to this here. Here we go.
All right.
Someone should have told Donald Trump that the president's job under Article 2 of the Constitution Someone should have told Donald Trump.
Oh, my gosh. They should have told him. I'm telling you, they should have told him. You know, the thing.
Oh, my God.
Wow. How do you not have at least that part, enough of your speech in your head to finish that thought?
I know.
Just to finish that thought.
Yep.
Wow.
You know, I talked about how public speaking is, you know, you and I both done it, but when you do it the first 100 times, it's petrifying. Mm-hmm. And it's completely different than talking into a microphone on the radio. But but being on the radio and the repetition of being able to do, you know, look at the topics of today and analyze them, not with a script, is wonderful training for speaking, because I used to have a script when I would do speeches. Then I had talking points. Now, even though I haven't given many speeches in the last couple of years, just because of the time that we're on the air, it's just impossible to do it. Mm-hmm. When I worked during the day, during the busy season, I'd give 3 a week. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I first started out with scripts and talking points. Then it got to the point after about 10 years of doing it, just give me the topic and I can give a speech.
Right. Conviction.
Yeah. Even if there was a teleprompter, if I'm on a certain narrative, I could keep it going.
Right. Exactly.
Knowing what the topic is.
At least finish the thought.
Right.
We have a line open. 1-866-90-RED-EYE. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Here's one line that Republicans will use from Biden when he said this last night about the pro-terrorist protesters in Chicago.
Those protesters out in the street, they have a point. A lot.
Wow.
They
That
have
was
a point.
as was brought up here. Let me see if I can find it. As was brought up here on Fox News. That was ad-libbed. It was not in the text, apparently. Here we go.
Two bit of news here. You may not have been able to catch it from watching this speech. He ad-libbed two lines that I think made news. Number one, those protesters outside have a point. And then he went on to say on both sides, he ad-libbed that line. And then he said toward the end, he said, all that talk that I was angry to step down, it's not true. That was not in the prompter either.
And that was a lie from Biden.
Everyone knows it's a lie.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's Joe. You know, when you are a career liar, you have to go out of your way to convince people that you're not lying. You have to go, I'm serious. No, I'm serious. That's when you know he's lying. He repeats it over and over again. Because he's trying to convince you. Maybe he's trying to convince himself. But the fact of the matter is that everybody knows exactly how this went down. There's really no question. I'm waiting for the book. I don't know that it'll take very long to write that book of how he was pushed out.
Well, when you look at his over half century in politics, his swan song was an extremely angry speech.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because even though they buried him late so Americans couldn't watch.
Right.
Because there's no way at a convention you start anybody at 11:30 at night Eastern time.
No. Well, a friend of mine went and saw Motley Crue the other night, and then he was texting at something like 10 or 10:30. The concert was over by 10:30. Motley Crue doesn't even stay up till 11:30.
Yeah, this isn't our generation. This is not our generation. When I was growing up in Buffalo, New York, the bars. The last drink was served at 4 a.m. You had to be out by 4:30. Normal starting time for the bands back then was like midnight.
Yeah, if we did two sets, our first set, if there was no other band, if we weren't opening for a band, our first set was at 9 or 9:30. And then it would be close to midnight when we would do a second set.
Right, but people are wimps now. They're asleep early, except our great audience.
Because they love America.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not pandering, by the way. We're not patronizing at all.
Right, if you love America, you're up this late.
But only the people who love America. And also podcasters.
But they were
people who listen to our
podcast. They buried him. Yeah. Oh, he was he was the keynote speaker at 11:30.
Yeah.
They didn't want anybody to see him. He was as expected. A lot of the commentary has been, this was like the State of the Union. But this was it for him. This was it.
Yeah.
There is no other type of speech he's going to give.
Nope.
He's
it's
done.
Over. It's over.
His legacy will be the angry speech, the complimenting of pro-Hamas protesters.
Yeah, right. The lies, lie after lie after lie.
Yeah, the obvious lies that have been debunked over and over and over and over again. He was extremely angry, and the thing is, that was day one of a campaign from the Harris campaign in which they said, we're going to be promoting joy over and over and over again. And I saw what you had written. You had commented on David Limbaugh's comment where he said, this is like the Hunger Games.
Yeah, he says, this has a Hunger Games feel to it. That was David Limbaugh a couple hours ago, and I reposted that on X. Perfect description, because it is, because it was really weird. The anticipation, the questions as to why Joe was being delayed. But all the other speakers were weird. I mean, it was a weird night. And what I mean by weird is that not the normal kind of liberal weird. That too, but it was not put together well. This was a piece super glued, duct taped together day one of the convention. It was not well organized.
But what about the story that came out yesterday about the platform?
Yeah.
Where the platform read, it was a platform from late July when Biden was still president, and they didn't change it up.
Right.
They didn't change it up to make it that Harris and the Democrat Party, it was Biden, Harris, Biden, Harris, Biden, Harris.
Right.
And it's just like when that came out yesterday, people were like, is this a joke?
Right.
And it's like, okay. I did see an article in the Wall Street Journal that said, does she think she can win by just riding a wave and doing nothing? Well, think about it. They're already quitting in the campaign. It's like, should we update the platform?
Well, she doesn't even update a speech from town to town.
Right. It's like, should we update a speech? Nah. The public are a bunch of idiots. Let's not invest a lot of time. Let's just talk about things like joy and imagery. Substance really doesn't matter. And, hey, we'll tax corporations.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, it's just you shake your head. We have always said that in any campaign, most of the time we have referred to Republicans on this because most of the time, I can't remember the last time I wanted a Democrat to win, but most of the time we want Republicans to win, and we're like, okay, you're not messaging correctly. Just the last couple of weeks. I mean, yesterday, it died today. I didn't get anything today. But over the weekend, it was, I got more than ever before of Trump supporters saying, I'm the most loyal Trump supporter. He's going to lose his own election. And I came on yesterday and said, well, every single day, how you view it is at the end of the day, are you on the defensive? And I said, even if he's going to be who he is, but as long as he stays away from certain topics, he should be okay. And so far he is. And somebody wrote me and said,
they were angrier than you.
I never got this. Think about this when we said this in 2016 and 2020 and how we got pounded.
Well, throughout the years on different Republicans, basically, but especially with Trump.
We would get pounded when we said, you've got to communicate effectively. Right. And people, no, you don't. No, you don't. We get Trump supporters telling us, no, you don't need to communicate effectively.
Yeah,
we'd
get
say,
kicked hard. Yeah.
Don't get involved in that. Don't get involved. And so there I was, the voice of Trump reason, which was, okay, yeah, he might have gone off, but look, at the end of the day, that's what I care about.
It didn't rise to the top. People weren't talking about it at the end of the day, so.
Now, I will say this. When he does that, he does miss the opportunity. Every single minute you speak, you should take the opportunity to destroy the opposition, especially on the issues.
Right.
So you may not be taking advantage of that, and it could hurt you a little bit, but the big hurt is when Trump will get into the argument and argue like Democrats.
Right. Yeah.
Well, when I said, because I'd gotten so many complaints about him over the weekend, it was the one in Pennsylvania, because he's been sticking in Pennsylvania, which is, by the way, a good strategy.
Sure.
And I said, no, he didn't. I understand what you're saying, but it didn't do any harm. Trump supporter wrote me, F you. He's not focused. I'm like, and I told you afterwards, I'm dying laughing going, wow. when you stay in this business long enough,
it comes around full circle.
It just comes around. It comes around completely, full circle. But
how dare you go soft, McNamara?
And I wasn't. It was just political analysis.
Yeah.
I still don't believe. As I said, that's why I nitpick the whole admitting. Look, I nitpick on all these things because I want it to be 100% right all the time.
Yeah.
When I look at it if I'm a political advisor, to anybody. But when you look right now, the Democratic Party is a mess.
And that's what it felt like tonight.
They are a big, 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 big mess.
That's what it felt like tonight. What I got from the Republican convention, and I know it's only day one, but the problem is day one, you want to set the tone. And they did. And it wasn't joy. What I got from the Republican convention was, at least from the two main keynote speakers, J.D. Vance on Wednesday, former President Trump on Thursday, was we're going to have a conversation. We want it to be less about a speech and more about talking about our families and things that matter, and it was conversational. Whether that worked or not, you can go back and debate and then look at it in the long game and see, all right, was that effective? But there was a tone. There was a very consistent tone. Also, we didn't have Mitch McConnell up there. We didn't have a bunch of establishment people up there reading something that they wouldn't have written, that they wouldn't say, because they feel they need to be up there. What you saw was the future of the Republican Party. What you have now is, it really was, and this is why I liked David Limbaugh's comment. It has a Hunger Games feel to it, and that is, it was chaos. There was this anticipation and a bit of anxiety as to what is going on with Joe Biden. Why isn't he on stage yet? And this angry tone, AOC shouting. She was shouting. She was angry. And none of the speakers looked joyful. So you've got this whole thing where and the word is everywhere. We're going to promote joy. We're going to promote joy. We're going to promote joy. That's why you see so many still shots of her smiling. And this was catastrophe that ended with Biden getting up there, and it was anything but joy. It was anger and lies and bitterness, believe us. Chris Wallace said it.
And it's bitter.
It was bitter, not bittersweet.
Bitter.
There was no sweet to it at all.
866-98 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Let's go to Michael in Illinois with a great point here. Michael, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio.
How you doing?
Good.
I think that when Biden said that Harris made every decision with him, that basically threw her under the bus, because now she cannot refute with any discussion anyone saying that she did not make decisions or help make decisions.
I must have.
It looks like to me she's trying to distance herself from that.
Yeah.
And that put her right back in the spotlight.
I'm going to go search for that, because I must have stepped out of the room or whatever, and I didn't see that.
Yeah.
But I didn't see that in any audio cut, even from the Republicans, and you think that would be the first thing that they would show. But I'm going to look for that one, because that statement in itself, if on video and audio from the convention, Republicans will use big time in political ads.
And we're probably going to expand on this some more, but you last week had said, look, I think after Biden is done on Monday, that's where they start the separating of, Kamala from Joe. And, and I was like, because in my mind, for some reason I had, well, they'll do it. I don't know when they'll do it. But, maybe they give it a few days. And now, actually, I think they probably have already started. They may have launched some ads at midnight as soon as Biden walked off stage to start this. But Michael makes a great point. We kind of played when we played Karine Jean-Pierre. It was last week, and she had basically glued the two together. But that's not as telling as Biden saying she was part of those decisions and she was right there with me and everything else. And that's him basically handcuffing himself to her in that way politically, saying, you can't separate yourself from me. Now, the question is, how far does it go? How far does it resonate?
Well, because you're insulting him by saying that.
Right.
That he didn't do the right things and we need to separate from him.
Right. Yeah, that's a massive conundrum, and I don't know how they make that work.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, this, reading this from Alex Thompson, reporter for Axios. One longtime Biden aide texts, "This is awful. He literally set up a campaign and handed it over to them. Do they have to cut him out of prime time?"
They did. They did.
Of course they did.
They did. Because they didn't want it making the word of mouth headlines. We've been talking about the media coverage and everything else. You know, whether the liberal media plays the, you know, and I think you may be right. They may not even play anything from him. They may not even focus on it much. They just kind of move on after the morning shows. They just kind of move on because it's day two. But you push him back. You know Americans are not going to stay up till 11:30 to watch a guy that's done. He's not the future of the party. He's at the end of its game. It's kind of sad, really. And I don't mean sad in a way like, oh, I wish he wasn't going. It's sad. The whole situation is sad, frankly. And he's not happy about it. It's clear that he's not happy about it. I wonder if they knew. This guy's going to go off script. He's going to go off script on a couple of things. We know he's going to go off script. Push him back as far as we can get away with it. And then nobody's watching. Nobody will care. And that's exactly how it played out. And the liberal media, what's interesting is it seems like you and I talked about it yesterday, that over the weekend and at the end of last week and really kind of building during the last week, the frustration by the liberal media for the Harris campaign and the fact that she doesn't talk to them. And, you know, I came to the conclusion or theory, maybe, that they have buyer's remorse. That maybe they're thinking now, you know what, we should have leapfrogged. We could sustain the hit on the leapfrog better than what we're dealing with now. And what I want to know is if the liberal media, because we played Acosta, Stephen A. Smith, and more, and it built and went into the weekend. I'm curious to know if they're seeing internals. That if they're looking at this, and Axelrod, by the way, saying, as you mentioned earlier, Axelrod saying that if the election were held today, Trump would win.
He believes Trump would win. Yeah, he says it's close, but he believes Trump would win. Let me see if I can. I'll see if I can find it here in a little bit.
So
continue.
I wonder
here-
if the liberal media
Here it is.
seeing some of those internals.
Look, she has made extraordinary progress. We were all in Milwaukee a month ago, and, there was euphoria there in a sense that this race was over, that they were going to win by a landslide, perhaps sweep in big majorities in the House and Senate, and things have changed dramatically. But this is still a very competitive race. If the election were today, I'm not sure who would win. And I think it may well be President Trump because it's an electoral college fight.
Right.
And in those battleground states.
Yeah, we were looking at national numbers at the top of this program. It's misleading.
And I've said,
as we've said all the time.
Was that Anderson Cooper he was on with?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. And by the way, that was noted by Anderson Cooper. That's kind of what stood out to me. Like, oh, okay. At least he's pointing out those are, and as you mentioned, we talk about that. It's not a national election; it's state by state. Look at the states. Look at the state breakdowns. Look at the battleground states. Britt Hume had said, what was it, a couple of months ago, 2-3 months ago, that if Trump wins two of those, was it two of those battleground states, then he wins the election. Maybe it was a 3 or 4. I forget what we said. But Trump was leading at that point. It was Biden, and he was leading with a decent margin in at least 4 of those states. I think he said 2. I think, did I say Brett Baer? Britt Hume. Britt Hume said, and he's done the math, so I don't really question it. But you look at that breakdown. You mentioned that Trump was in Pennsylvania. I agree with you. I think that's a smart play. Stay there because you're seeing a lot of it. When I think of the unions and the separation now from union leadership and union members on this election, I think of states like Pennsylvania. When I think of the fact that it's clear Kamala Harris, just like Biden, wants to kill fracking. It doesn't matter what her campaign says. Nobody believes that she is pro-fracking. And when you're talking Pennsylvania, you're talking about a major energy producer, the birthplace of energy production in that regard in this country. And so for Trump to campaign in Pennsylvania, it's a good play. Here's what I would say. Axelrod touched on a couple of things. And I saw somebody else make the point yesterday, too, on the down ballot. And there has to be a concern by Republicans because I think there was everything is on fire panic moment for the Democratic Party with Joe Biden because they were seeing the effect on the down ballot is going to be just horrible, catastrophic because of voter apathy. So many Democrats staying home, not going to the polls for Joe Biden. And when they got Kamala Harris on there at the top of the ticket, at the very least, they could pare down some of that loss on the down ballot. At least more people might show up for her on the Democratic side than Joe Biden. And we'll see what the down ballot looks like. Look, this is why we say to the Republicans and every candidate we support, you campaign like you're 20 points behind, and this season you campaign like you're 50.
Well, yeah, and we've always said that, but that applies to Democrats, too, and Democrats definitely are not because they've been a mess.
Yeah. No, it's chaos.
Since Walz was picked.
Yeah.
Oh, man, when the CNN reporter was trying to get Walz's attention, that we'll play that audio coming up in a little bit. But the video is what you really have to see because the reporter's right there. He's 5 feet away. He's saying, Governor Walz, and Governor Walz is pretending he doesn't hear him.
It's so bad.
It's so bad.
He turns his head quickly. Yeah. You know what it looks like? For those of us who have had babies, when you're feeding a baby in a high chair and they don't want to eat it and they turn their head real fast away from the spoon, there's 1 or 2 moments where Walz does that, where he turns his head so he doesn't have to look at the CNN reporter directly. And it's really bad. It's really horrible, and they made note of it on CNN while it was happening.
Let's head to Robert in Michigan. And normally we wouldn't go to this, but we need to address this as we do every election cycle. Robert, you're on Red Eye Radio. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
If you have like 10 networks or more that are spreading all this propaganda about Republicans, Trump especially, and you have like, how many outlets are telling the truth? 3 or 4? Why is it going to matter if he's crossing every T and dotting every I?
Okay, and that's why I said normally we don't go to these calls anymore, but I wanted to go to it at least once here in this election cycle, and that's because they don't control the narrative anymore. People get their news from the internet. They don't get it from the networks. They don't get it from the newspaper.
They have a computer in their hand.
People don't wait for it anymore. When I was growing up in the 60s and 70s, you had 3 television networks and you had your major newspaper in your town. Odds are they were all liberal. There was nothing for conservatives. One of the biggest changes over the last couple of years has been Elon Musk on Twitter. The fact that the citizens are the ones that actually do the fact checking. And so people get their news from the internet. I said this the other day, I get 0.00001% of my news from TV and or radio.
Right.
Now, I go to radio to hear opinion, and I go to TV to hear opinion because that's exclusive.
Right.
When you give your opinion, you can't get that anywhere else.
Right.
But nobody waits for news anymore. Nobody
right.
when I say nobody, there are people. My father still will say the news is on. You know, my father's 98, but most people, you see the networks, the liberal networks, they keep going down and down and down in audience. So that's been the change. And how do I know this? Because that would be the next question. How do you know this? I know this because in the polls for Biden, as all the networks, the liberal networks, ignored it and said he was fine and there was nothing wrong with him, landslide numbers of people between 70 and 80%, which means the majority of Democrats knew that he had cognitive problems, were sure he had cognitive problems. And also, when you look at, and this goes back to 2021, when Biden was blaming Trump for the border, and the vast majority of the people didn't blame him for the border. When you asked whether the border is secure, back then when Mayorkas was saying it, the vast majority landslide number of people didn't believe it. When the media and that supports Biden kept saying, why can't people see the greatness of the economy, and they ignored the inflation portion of it, the American public said the economy isn't good because of inflation. So in topic after topic, if you look at where the polls all stand in landslide numbers, for the most part, people know what's going on, and they don't buy into the Democratic Party. Now, the problem is, why are people who believe that the Democrats are lying to them on the border, on the economy, still in the polls, still support the Democrats? That would be the question that you would ask.
Right, yeah.
But they don't control the media like they did when I was growing up at all.
Exactly. And Robert, you can't make people care. The old saying, you can lead a horse to the liquor store, but you can't make it stay up all night doing tequila shots with you. And the problem is that
though, they don't know what's going on. I mean, Democrats themselves that vote Democrat, I tell them, oh, that ain't going on. I don't know where they're getting their news from.
Right, but you're not trying to convince Democrats. You're trying to convince independents.
Independents. The middle is what gets you to the win.
Yeah, you're not. So when you got those, like the one, there was some guy, I forgot who was. Thanks so much, Robert.
Thanks, Robert.
Somebody was at the. I can't remember who was on social media yesterday at the DNC. And it was somebody well-known conservative. I can't remember who it was. And it was like high school kids for Harris. Couldn't even talk to this kid.
Yeah.
He was just like...
Yeah.
And the one, I don't know if you saw the one on X yesterday with this woman just screaming at the reporter asking questions.
Yeah.
Or, the Karen. Exactly. But the people dressed up as abortion pills.
Right.
You cannot have conversations with these people. You pro-Hamas people, which is a significant portion of the Democratic Party that support terrorism.
Right.
You can't deal with these people, which is why you've got Biden coming out and saying, basically, it was his very fine moment, except for the fact there is no way you could do what Trump did, because Trump was absolutely clear on it and stated, well, no, not the racists.
Right.
Not the white Aryan nations.
Right.
No, I mean just the people that are talking about should we, with the Confederate things, for example, the Confederate monuments, should we erase history?
Right.
And that was the point behind it.
Right.
Because otherwise, all these Civil War reenactments have to go. All these Civil War, what is it? I can't think of it. The big battlefield. I got mind blank here from the Civil War.
Gettysburg
and everything else. Yeah. I mean, all the national parks that are set up, they have to go.
Right.
And the point was, no, we should not be erasing history.
Right.
And that's a point that is not racist. It's no, we need to know where we've been as a country. But so he had that moment where he said very good, basically there's very good people on both sides. Well, they're pro-terrorist Jew haters.
Yeah.
There isn't a lot of room in there. They're not saying we support they're not riding the tightrope that Biden's trying. I support Israel, but Israel's committing, humanitarian crimes, and I'm going to not send them all the weapons that they want. I'm going to give and enable Iran to get billions of dollars in cash in order to be able to attack American interests, American bases, and Israel.
Yeah.
And
it's so maddening that that's still going on, yet all day yesterday you heard the back and forth. Well, the United States has agreed to the agreement, and Israel seems to be in. Now all we need to do is get the terrorists to agree.
Well, Biden said that last night, the ceasefire, we've been working on it. Hamas isn't part of the negotiations.
They're not even at the table.
I can't wait to our next contract. We'll negotiate with our agent.
Yeah, exactly.
We won't worry about management.
Right. Exactly.
Hey, the agent and I, Eric, myself, and our agent came up with a great deal.
That's right. We're ready.
And we're ready to go here. We've accomplished so much. You're all on the damn side. What about management?
We've agreed to the agreement.
No, they want us to take a huge pay cut.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
After fuel, an owner-operator's second biggest variable cost is tires. To save, get as much life out of them as possible with good habits. Maintain proper inflation. It's free and easy, yet it's the highest saving maintenance you can perform on the truck. Improper inflation is by far the greatest reason tires fail early. Perform routine maintenance. If a technician can by hand initiate irregular movements in tie rod ends, kingpins, wheel bearings, and torque rods, that spells trouble. Fight irregular wear by replacing suspension components. On the steer axle, change your shocks at least as often as you change your tires. On the drive axle, replace shocks halfway through the tire's life, and when the tires are changed too. Finally, employ good driving habits. You have full control here. More conservative driving over rough surfaces helps reduce wear. Speeding, hard braking, curbing, and tight turns cause tires to wear fast. On the other hand, steady acceleration, braking, and steering can extend the life, saving a bundle. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section on the website for more details on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Yeah, so when you look at, we always get that question. Well, the media's against him, he can't win. That's an argument from 10 years ago and more.
Yeah.
It's not an argument you can use anymore. That's why I went to the caller and I said, and I wasn't trying to be derogatory, I was just saying, we don't go to this call much anymore because we've covered this so much over the last 5 years. We saw this more probably a little bit in 2020, more in 2016, but every year it goes down when people realize, well, wait a minute, the American public knows what's going on. How do they know if the media controls everything and they don't?
Right. Well, and keep in mind, what you see, you'll see a lot of conservatives post liberal media outlets, because they're going after them and the whole thing. So it looks like you're being bombarded by those images, but the fact of the matter is keep in mind, the people actually, if you're curious, you control what you learn. You can learn it.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thanks for being here this morning, looking at the first day of the DNC yesterday. Wow. Just to play some of the audio that we got. I want to play, first off, this is where you had CNN's John Berman right in front of Tim Walz, who's ignoring him.
Yeah.
He's turning his head as if he doesn't see him, and he's right there. I mean, he's right in front of him, but here it is. Here we go.
Governor Walz. Governor Walz. Governor Walz. Governor Walz. Governor Walz is doing his best job ignoring me right now, but you can see this is the family bond.
By the way, I reposted that on X. The folks over at Media Research Center, Newsbusters had posted it, and so I reposted their version of it, so you can see, because it is a visual. You have to see how he's quickly turning his head,
and then he does the clap. By the way, I figured out his crutch is the clap.
Yeah. It is.
Because he was like ignoring him, and as he was turned, so he could ignore him and not look him in the eye, he went like, and like clapped, and it was it's so. By the way, this whole, and we didn't come up with it because we do not judge people by their identity. It was the Democrats who came out and said, well, the Republicans are scared of the masculinity of Tim Walz. Yeah. That sort of died out, didn't it?
It really did.
Sort of died out.
In fact, it's gone away, much like Kamala has and Tim Walz have done from the media. This has to be especially frustrating. We're at convention, and neither one of them are talking to the media. Say that out loud throughout the week. We are at their party's convention, and neither one of them are talking to the media. We're at day 30.
Yeah, it's day 30.
Day
full
30.
Month, yeah.
Congratulations, a full month.
Well, not only that, I want to play this because this was on CNN, and they were they were even shaking their heads. And this is when the platform, the platform came out. This was bizarre. I was like, I got to double check this. There's no way. But just listen to how they introduced this on CNN. Right, here we go.
David Chalian, President Biden dropped out of the race a month and a day ago. You wouldn't know that if you read the Democratic platform because it repeatedly refers to President Biden's second term. There are roughly 19 or 20 mentions of President Biden's second term. They've had a month and a day to update it. Why haven't they?
Yeah, there won't be one of those, Biden's second term. We know that. And
thanks for that.
Yeah. Are you going to tell us why it matters? Anything else we need to know?
Oh, my
gosh.
And let's continue it. Here we go.
Right. Listen, the platform was largely the draft of it put in place and voted on earlier this summer. And I think in talking to some folks, the idea of reopening the platform to try to fit in not yet fully developed Kamala Harris policies while they were quickly changing, they thought they would be opening a can of worms, right? And that there would be all of a sudden some fights about what goes in the platform, and they wanted to avoid that at all costs. So they're willing to take the hit on the fact that the platform is sort of a relic of the Biden era because it's a non-binding thing.
It's just like we're just going to quiet quit.
Yeah.
It would be a hassle to do it. We don't feel like doing it.
Yeah, it's, come on.
This is the attention to detail that you got from the Biden administration.
Right. Exactly.
All right. So, Kamala she really isn't telling people what she's going to do. So let's just have the platform be the Biden platform, which gives the Republicans, the platform from the Democrats is the Biden platform for a second term.
Yeah.
How do you win that if you're a Democrat? Well, look, it's not that we're going to follow the Biden second term. It's just we're just damn lazy people who have quiet quit on everything, including this presidential campaign.
Well, she's not even writing new stuff when she goes from town to town.
No.
It's the exact same speech.
Oh, and if you're a Democrat out there, you guys are being unfair. Do you know what my blood pressure would be if the Trump campaign did something like this? If the Republicans did
it? No, we'd go back all the way to 2005 when we first started. It was like the first few days, first week.
And then we always go back. That's a benchmark where Eric.
Oh, my gosh.
Where Eric learned a little bit about me when.
No, I thought, well, it's going to end right here.
That would have been August of 2005 when Tom DeLay said conservatives need to stop complaining about the budget. We've cut everything. There's nothing more to cut. We've cut everything. And
we were still in our pre-show meeting.
Yeah.
And you're pacing back and forth. And I'm thinking, do they have such a thing as a brain defibrillator? Because his head's going to explode, and I don't know what to do about that. And we're
19 years ago,
yeah,
probably right about now, because it was right. It was right before Katrina hit.
Yeah, yeah, wow,
yeah,
wow. It would have been wow. And if they were doing this, if the Republicans' convention from day one had gone like this. Because it really is, it's chaos and everybody sees it. But what's the problem? What's at the basis of it? The nothingness. The Kamala Harris campaign is built on nothing. They're not even trying to invent. Wow. They weren't even trying to, as they just mentioned, they've had a month and a day. Yeah, man, whatever.
It's the Seinfeld campaign.
No, I mean, seriously. They really don't care.
And you know what you're going to hear now? Well, in this, in the platform, you say you're going to do this. That's not my platform. It's the Biden platform.
Right.
No, it's the platform of your Democratic Party that you are now the de facto leader of. So you're saying that your own platform you disagree with. But you'll raise taxes that will hurt the poor. You wish to put a stealth tax in. Amazing. We talked about corporate taxes yesterday because that's when she came out. No, I want to raise it from 21 to 28%.
Well, it only took her a month. I mean, seriously.
And it was we expected it because it's the biggest BS the Democrats throw out.
How is it not the play from day one? Right?
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, because it's the old playbook of things that, listen, corporations are bad, and you capitalize you're trying to capitalize on the populace, basically. And we've got to do something about these corporations, blah, 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 blah. She goes price controls before she goes corporate taxes. What?
Yeah, I know. That's a great point.
Who does that?
If you're looking at it as we do, because we will put on our political hats and say, if we're the consultants for the Democrats, what would we tell them?
You got to go.
It's not what we believe, but it's like, what would we tell them in order to win? And the first thing would be, if you're going to throw something out, we know you're far left. If you're going to throw something out, stick to the greed and corporate taxes because they're greedy. And that fits in with your inflation thing.
Yeah.
Price controls don't go near it.
Here's the thing. AOC kind of approached the tax the rich thing, because I would have gone that too. I mean, if I'm telling Democrats, well, all right, then tax corporations, tax the rich more. Raise taxes on the rich. You don't have to do anything else. Just go down that road. The tax you go back to the whole their fair share thing, right? AOC was saying something to the effect of Donald Trump is lining his pockets with money and trying to make the point that he's benefited financially from being president and getting into the political game when everyone knows that his brand has suffered greatly, and there's really no way around that fact. But at least she was attempting to go down the old road. I would have done it differently. I would have said, no, what you do is say, we're going to tax Donald Trump and his cronies even more because they need to pay their fair share. Corporations need to pay their fair share. You do this thing. How did they go price controls first? Nobody's doing price controls. You had to go back to the 30s to find the last time someone wanted to do price controls.
Let's go to Marcus in Pennsylvania. Marcus, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio. Welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We certainly can.
Okay. I need to be squared away here. I love you guys. Listen to your show all the time. You're saying that it's irrelevant what the media says because the people don't get their news from the media anymore. But then you say Kamala has to have a press conference. Why? Who cares?
Well, because
they do.
Well, number one, they do. But number two, we didn't say the media as a whole. We said the mainstream traditional media of television and newspapers. The media is also social media, which is why they're called social media and the internet. People get their news from the internet. So press conferences, anything that's out there would be on social media. The reason that people knew, for example, that Biden had huge cognitive problems was because they saw with their own eyes and heard with their own ears what the president would say when they watched him. If the media didn't cover it, the internet did, and so they got it. But that's number one on the media. Number two, our attack on the Harris campaign is the fact that they won't do media press conferences because they're afraid.
They won't do friendly
They won't do
press
friendly
conferences.
She's afraid to tell the American public where she stands on the issues. The Democrats are afraid to tell the American public where they stand on the issues, and that's the problem that they have, and that's why, again, that's my answer.
She's not talking to anybody.
Yeah, we didn't say the entire media. We said the mainstream media, which is the traditional liberal TV stations out there and the traditional newspapers.
Yeah, to be clear, Marcus, I don't need her to talk to the media to know what she believes. I don't need that. The liberal media is begging her for talking points, begging her to sit down. They're going to softball it all day, and she can't even do a softball interview. Why?
Right. She's not even talking to social media.
Exactly.
Right.
So that's the point. Right. It's not. It's we're not saying they're irrelevant. They don't have the impact. And here's the thing too. The clock has to be ticking for Glenn Kessler. All due respect, over at Washington Post as the fact checker, because we're our own fact checker. And it just depends on how far you want to go with it. Do your own due diligence, we always say, even when you're listening to this program or after you listen to our program, and go out there and find the facts for yourself. The truth is the truth, and you'll know it when you see it. So all of these things come together, but it's the media right there. The media is looking at it going, why in the world not only is she not talking, but the guy that she picked to be all folksy, and thank you for the call, Marcus, to be out there and be Midwesterny isn't doing that at all. In fact, now he's running, and I understand he's pretty good at dodging things.
Out of the 300 and probably close to 35 or 40 million people in this country, very few actually watch the news channels.
Right.
On a great night, Fox will have 3 or 4 million viewers.
Right.
MSNBC might have 1.5 to 2, and CNN 5.
And I don't know what the network ratings are, but they're much lower than they used to be because they don't have anywhere near the share they had because
they don't have the
there's
share.
so many different
You
outlets.
missed my comment. CNN with 5 listeners
Mm-hmm.
or 5 watchers. You missed that one right over.
I thought
right
you
over
meant
past you.
I thought you meant 5 million because I was going to make a joke about that.
And
5 listeners,
right? But the fact is, they do get publicity on the internet.
No, because
the audio cuts are all over. What happens on all the three, you can find the audio cuts of things that people view as important.
We expose them to a very large audience, our audience.
866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's our calling. I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up here on the show,
on the big show,
more on the DNC and where it's going. How are the Republicans responding? Phil Donahue died yesterday.
Yeah.
We'll have one of what I view as one of the best moments ever on his show.
Yeah, definitely.
I had posted
we
it
played,
yesterday.
in fact, we played. It's probably the most played item from his show on our show.
Yeah. I'm
over
sure.
the
Yeah,
years.
probably we played that more than anybody. Yeah.
It's great.
And Shawn Fein continues his total, complete betrayal of the union movement in this country. Just amazing to watch it. See the shirt he wore?
Yeah.
Trump is a scab, and then open it up like, what's his name, the wrestler did?
Yeah.
On the Republican
Hulk
National,
Hogan.
Republican National Convention.
Right.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Well, I guess what do you want to call him? The Judas of the American labor movement, Shawn Fein, his full Benedict Arnold betrayal of the union movement last night at the DNC.
Yep.
He took his jacket off and it said, "Donald Trump is a scab." And I'm just shaking my head because if Trump is a scab, then what do you call a Shawn Fein who has completely betrayed the union movement in this country? Completely.
Yep. And he acknowledged not too long ago that, and he used the words, a great number of the members would be voting for Trump. He knows why.
He's the new, when Terry O'Sullivan of the Labor's Union retired back in 2023, he was quiet for a while, but he was one of the biggest blowhards that we went after probably a decade ago, whose union was in favor of illegal immigration. And then I'll never forget, he was speaking, I think it was in Michigan, and we just said, what a big blowhard.
Yeah.
He was also part of the betrayal of the union movement in this country. And look, whether you're pro-union or not, that's not the point I'm trying to make here.
Right.
That these union leaders are being paid dues by hardworking people.
Yeah.
in manufacturing, and the union leadership in this country has agreed with the Democrats to destroy the manufacturing base.
Right.
You know, I remember going back and we pounded on Terry O'Sullivan. We just
I don't know
pounded
how many
on him.
times. Yeah.
Because just a blowhard throwing out BS left and right. And I mean, he was a president for like 23 years.
Yeah.
But when they started agreeing with the climate change, the radical climate change agenda of the Democrats, and agreeing with illegal immigration, we just went, they don't give a damn about their members anymore.
Nope.
And that's what started, was the illegal immigration. I believe it's what started us, going after O'Sullivan with the labor's union, and now Shawn Fein. I mean, my God. I mean, if Trump is a scab, then you're traitor scabs.
Right. Right.
You betrayed the union movement. And I don't care whether you believe in the union movement or not. I'm talking about integrity, honesty, and they had none. Zero.
No, we've been talking about the situation with union leadership versus the members, and the members were quieter in the past. This election season, we've heard from more of them.
Yes, we have. Yep.
And Fein, he said it. He said it on television. A great number of our members will be voting for the other guy, meaning Trump. And, so here they are. Union leadership has been taking your dues, if you remember, and using them to prop up the Democrats and help them get elected so that they can enact policy that's going to kill the industry that fills your paycheck. And it's over and over again. The Democrats are not the manufacturing party any longer. And they haven't been for a while, but now it's very clear. And by the way, you can go learn to code.
Well, that's the thing. If Trump had ever done what Biden did when Biden, day one, got rid of the Keystone XL pipeline,
right?
The construction of that killed tens of thousands of great union jobs for no reason at all.
Go learn to code.
There was no reason.
Yeah.
There wasn't even a climate change reason.
No.
It just fit the false imagery of it fit the false imagery. I got to put two do two falses make it a positive? No. Because it didn't even fit the false narrative of the Democratic Party.
3 of his 19 czars agreed that the pipeline was it was his transportation czar, his energy czar, and his climate change czar, John Kerry. But the energy secretary, transportation secretary, the media asked them. Well, yeah, they all agreed. Pipeline would be the best way to transport it in terms of their agenda.
Right.
And it didn't matter.
I think you had a regional pipe fitters union leader come out against it, but there was no uprising at all.
Right.
I mean, the union leadership in this country, and again, my point is not whether you're for or against unions, and just so everybody knows, I'm a former United Steelworker and former International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers member. I've reviewed contracts with management, and I've walked a picket line, and once even was involved in a small wildcat strike, just so people know that in my youth at that point. I've talked about unions since I've been in talk radio, and I feel that probably in most private sector businesses today, the establishment of unions isn't growing because it's antiquated. And I say it's antiquated due to the fact of technology can now monitor the performance of most people better than they ever could before, which is why unions are only growing in government, where old union leadership, like George Meany, if you look at FDR, they wanted no unions in government because unions were instituted to share more of the profits with management.
Right.
And so it's not even, to me, here's the point. The point is not whether you agree with it or not, the unions. It's the fact that when you're a worker out there, you have no choice. You got to join the union.
Yeah. Right.
So you've got great workers. You've got great workers out there who they want a job.
Right.
They go out there, and a lot of these, you talk about, a UAW job, a pipe fitter's job, a laborer's union. These are tough jobs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these are tough. These are people that they're physically working for a living. I say physically because I believe people also mentally work for a living too.
Right.
But they physically work. It's hard work. And they put trust, since they don't have individual negotiating ability, they put their trust in union leadership. And I know from the unions that I was in, we didn't trust, especially when we were in a small local, we didn't trust the national at all.
Right.
And this goes back to 78, 79, and 80, when I was part of the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers. One of the reasons that the actual local negotiators, the business manager that came in, the regional business manager came in to negotiate it, we had nobody on site who was paid.
Right.
Anybody who was a steward was just a volunteer. They didn't trust him.
Right.
They didn't think that the union leadership was involved in their best interest, which is why when I was there at the one company I worked at, they came to me and said, "You got a college degree. Will you look at the contract?" I remember looking at it and saying, "Got to sign it. It's a great deal." It was like 9% the first year. I said, "You got to do it, but there's going to be layoffs and I'm gone because I'm at the lower end of the totem pole."
Right.
And that's the reality of union. And as I was told, and you can take it however you want. I mean, I have no bitterness at all. Every part of my life has been exciting and has been a great learning experience. But when I got laid off, management said if it wasn't for the union, you'd be here. You'd stay because of the quality of your work. And so, that is part of the challenges of unions. If you strictly go by seniority, well, then you're not at that point in the competitive marketplace where other companies are choosing merit and not seniority.
Right.
You're losing a competitive edge.
Right.
And so that's the problem when you look at why a union may be antiquated today by today's standards. But that's not the point. The point is these people go into work and they want to trust their management that they're paying dues to. It's not like just they walk in and they're not paying dues. You see it come out every month. And some of these unions, I remember the one radio union I was in for a short time. I couldn't believe the initiation fees that they had.
SAG-AFTRA, right? That's
it was after.
After, yeah.
It's like, whoa, man.
Right.
And the one time I wasn't at the company long enough and I was able to get out.
I have friends in that union, yeah, and the same thing. It was like, I'm a member, but didn't really go anywhere.
I remember one time and that in the radio union, and they were bragging about, in one city that I worked at, they were bragging about what a great job they did. And this was after. And it was like, now the minimum, radio personality, and this would have been, I think this was for talk show host, would be like $37,000 a year. And the lowest paid talk show host in the market was making $75,000.
Yeah.
And they were bragging about it.
Yeah.
And we went on the air and talked about it. And they wanted to kick us out of the union. They wanted our jobs.
Wow.
He said, well, wait a minute, are we telling anything? It's not that? No, but you're disparaging the union. I'm telling you the truth about it, that you're negotiating nothing.
Right.
I'm paying my dues for you. Just
go get a minimum of 80 instead of 37. I mean,
exactly. If the lowest talk show is making 75, make it 90.
Right.
But the fact is, the reason you're complaining, you're paying dues, and they're claiming they're negotiating for you in your best interest, and they're not. And so when you see, but that's minor compared to what you see going on now with the union leadership of the UAW and Shawn Fein embracing, and not fighting, because the unions had the power, in my opinion, to fight back against the Democrats and say, you can't do the EVs, you're going to kill unions. They should have gone public with it, and they didn't.
Right.
And they bought into the BS that the Democrats were throwing at them. Oh, EVs were going to create millions of new union jobs. They lied to you, which means the union leadership lied to you.
Yep.
Shawn Fein lied to you.
Yep. We pointed out during the Sullivan years all the time. He was at every major Democratic event.
Yeah, for a while. I forgot.
For a while, was
that 2012? Was it 2016? I can't remember when he was all over the place. He was always at rallies, Democratic rallies.
I think in 2012, really going after Romney. And because of his former business and everything he was associated with, and just went crazy. But he's he was ever present, O'Sullivan, and he But we've talked about that idea. Well, man, you're paying dues. Are they working in your best interest?
Yeah.
If you're a senior member at a gig and you've been at that gig for 30 years, I have in fact a neighbor, a guy that lives in my neighborhood, retired Teamster. Great life. He's got a great life, so he's happy. But the question is, what about the future of the union? What about the future?
Well, what about what I look at it is the basic implied contract you have with your workers.
Right.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
And I understanding that you go into a union, you're forced into it, and you have to. If you want the job, you got to join the union. You got to pay the dues. So you put your trust in the integrity that they'll do the best for the worker, and they haven't.
Right. Well, and even Gettelfinger back in the 2008, 2009 domestic OEM, the car maker thing, Gettelfinger basically came out and said, well, look, we need these companies to exist, so we have the jobs, because by the end of that, GM became Government Motors. The bridge loan was turned in, was converted for GM and that whole thing. And people were outraged because of the bailout. And the union, of course, wasn't outraged, but Gettelfinger basically said, look, they got to, they're going to have to be around. They're going to have to make a profit. Because in 2008, they were bleeding cash, the automakers were. And right now, we're at a breaking point on cars.
Yeah.
And it's not going to get any better until it breaks, until something gives, or there's some kind of relief on regulatory items that are controlling all of this. But the price point has outpaced what Americans can afford by far on new vehicles, and it's just breaking the backs of family after family after family. So what do? You buy used.
And look, union workers aren't stupid.
Right.
They understand that, well, if you're following what the government mandates are, and the government mandates are creating a product that doesn't make a profit, and even if it did, we have fewer union workers, how is that in our benefit?
Right. Exactly.
And it seems that, you want the power base of unions, you would just think that with the lack of accountability that exists in unions over the last 20 years, favoring the Democratic Party, who wishes to destroy U.S. manufacturing.
Right.
They don't want it because it creates carbon gases.
Right. They want to shut it down.
They want it gone.
Biden said it to you. Go learn to code.
Yeah. And Biden out there yesterday, I'm the biggest supporter of unions, the most pro-union president.
Garbage.
Absolute garbage. I mean, the thing is, they're lying to both sides.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you're going to lie, make sure you lie to everybody.
866-90-RED-I.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-I.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Yeah, that just, that irked me where I, nothing, believe me, it didn't stay long. I expected it from Shawn Fein. But when he just had their, for anyone, I mean, Shawn Fein has betrayed the union movement in this country. For him to dare call Trump a scab. And remember, yeah, Trump's been in management, but Trump worked with construction unions all the time
Sure.
in New York and negotiated with them for years and had relationships with them. And so whatever you say about Trump, he was always on the owner-management side.
Right, yeah.
And still worked with unions.
Right, yeah.
Shawn Fein is somebody who is paid by the worker and has betrayed the hell out of them.
Yeah. Look, the moment he said that on TV, a great number of our members will be voting for Trump. I thought, and you could tell in that moment, because we played the audio cut, but you and I were watching the video of it, you could tell that he kind of instantly regretted saying that out loud.
Yeah, he did look uncomfortable.
Because he realized he did the very quick union dues math on that and said, oh, no, I'm about to tell them that I'm taking their money and working against their interests. Because you got to think that through. Why are the members voting for Trump?
Yeah.
Because they believe he's better for the union. But he's taking your money and working against you.
Yep. And you can't debate it on the EVs.
Right? Those are bricks.
Right. And it was even like, well, look what a great contract he got us. Yeah, because there's going to be a lot less of you.
Exactly.
As we have said.
And it's going to be a short contract.
Right. And it's just like, and they know it. They understand it. But the union members understand where we're going on that.
Right.
Links to everything Red Eye on the website, redeyeradioshow.com.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. It sad to hear the death of Phil Donahue yesterday.
Yeah.
When you said you can't help but look at him and think of the SNL skit.
The first thing
with Phil Hartman.
Phil Hartman doing Phil Donahue, and it was really great. He did a good Phil Donahue, and obviously with SNL, you over exaggerate the points of the essence of really the first talk show where you go into the audience and then you put somebody up there and you're going to kind of air out their dirty laundry, and then you have celebrities, including Donald Trump, and a number of celebrities along the way. And Phil Donahue was one of those liberals that I disagreed with politically, but you still had respect and you still liked the guy. He came off he didn't come off as angry, as, bitter. It's totally different in the media today. But I think he's also was a different in his presentation and likely in his personal life. I didn't know him personally, but a more reasonable person that was willing to listen. And there was evidence of that on his show.
We'll have that in just a moment. Here's how I view it. Even if I disagree with him, I watched him.
Oh, yeah.
And that's when you're in broadcasting, that's a broadcast mentality. That's like, okay, how do I know he was good?
Yeah.
Because he was on in the morning.
Yep.
He'd be on after like the morning news shows or whatever, and you turn him on. But he was trying to do both. He was trying to do serious talk and what you call hot talk at the same time. Right. He was attempting to be but he could succeed because it was the beginning. couldn't do that. I mean,
he was making the rules,
right? As you could see, down the road with other talk show host Jerry Springer that came in.
Yeah.
That Jerry Springer was just. I mean, it was just it. By the way, it's still on.
Springer's the
it's
old
like,
episodes. Or?
Yeah, the old episodes are still on. It's just like, and what Springer became. It was a zoo, and I actually think, and I've said this before, the stuff that they would do where they would know, beforehand that because they'd pre-interview these people and they would know that somebody was cheating on someone else.
Yeah.
And one person didn't know, and they'd expose it in public. I've always thought that was out of bounds. I never liked that. I never ever. I don't care what your politics are. I never would ever tear you apart in public when you didn't know something like that. That is that personal. But
I guess it would, with me, it would depend on how much they agreed to and what they knew the potential was for being exposed. I think a lot of people probably were fairly ignorant to how it was going to fall out. Maybe not. I could be wrong. Maybe they were totally in on it and didn't care. I do think that if they were doing that show today, Springer or Maury Povich, they could do a reveal at the end and say, because in today's world, you could say you are the father and you're also the mother, and it would work. But
I'm not sure how you got to that point, but I liked it.
But it was for us when we were watching that stuff. There was stuff that kind of fell away, and it was like, okay, it was a personal thing with whatever's going on in that person's life. And then you had your moments with more famous people and everything else. But the idea of him walking around
with
in the audience with the microphone.
Yeah, that was.
I mean, Oprah basically ripped that off.
Yeah.
I mean, that was she took that and then, and then ran with it, and now she's a billionaire, but that was Phil Donahue's basically blazing the path, if you want to call it that, or, basically setting the rules, writing the rules, and maybe the things not to do as well along the way. But it had a long run. It was nearly 3 decades on the air.
70s, 80s. I think it went to
95. 96.
Yeah,
September 13th, 1996 was the final original episode of Donahue. 26 years in syndication, 29 years total, nearly 7,000 shows total.
Now, I might not have stayed with them, but remember, you didn't really know. You just turned the show on. It wasn't like you knew.
Right.
You didn't have the internet. Okay, what's Donahue going to be talking about today? You just waited. He came on, and I
introed what the topic was.
Intro, and it was like you'd watch, and if it got okay, this is too much fluff, I'd go away. But one of the best interviews he ever did was in 1979 when he brought on the late economist Milton Friedman. And boy, I wish there was a Milton Friedman today. But again, if there was a Milton Friedman today, he'd only be on Fox.
Yeah,
you would not have. Yeah. You would not have anybody on the left interview somebody like Milton Friedman because he understood economics.
Right.
And I will say this about Donahue. You can see this in this short clip we're going to play. Well, you can't see it, but we played it so many times that many people are familiar with it. It's probably one of the most frequent cuts that we had played in the first 5-6 years of our show together.
Yeah.
We always played this audio cut from Donahue and Milton Friedman because Friedman simplified everything and he asked the great questions. And in fact, one of the questions he brings up here is one of the best questions ever that we have always thrown out there, and the left can never answer it, ever.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to play this. This is Milton Friedman, 1979, with Phil Donahue.
See around the globe the maldistribution of wealth, the desperate plight of millions of people in underdeveloped countries. When you see so few haves and so many have-nots, when you see the greed and the concentration of power within, did you ever have a moment of doubt about capitalism? and whether greed's a good idea to run on?
Well, first of all, tell me, is there some society you know that doesn't run on greed? You think Russia doesn't run on greed? You think China doesn't run on greed? What is greed? Of course, none of us are greedy. It's only the other fellow who's greedy. The world runs on individuals pursuing their separate interests. The great achievements of civilization have not come from government bureaus. Einstein didn't construct his theory under order from a bureaucrat. Henry Ford didn't revolutionize the automobile industry that way. In the only cases in which the masses have escaped from the kind of grinding poverty you're talking about, the only cases in recorded history are where they have had capitalism and largely free trade. If you want to know where the masses are worst off, it's exactly in the kinds of societies that depart from that. So that the record of history is absolutely crystal clear, that there is no alternative way so far discovered of improving the lot of the ordinary people that can hold a candle to the productive activities that are unleashed by a free enterprise system.
But it seems to reward not virtue as much as ability to manipulate the system.
And what does reward virtue? You think a communist commissar rewards virtue? You think a Hitler rewards virtue? You think, excuse me, if you'll pardon me, do you think American presidents reward virtue? Do they choose their appointees on the basis of the virtue of the people appointed or on the basis of their political clout? Is it really true that political self-interest is nobler somehow than economic self-interest? You know, I think you're taking a lot of things for granted. And just tell me where in the world you find these angels who are going to organize society for us. Well, I don't even trust you to do that.
And it was cut off here, but I saw I've seen the entire, free to choose where this clip was in a later version of it.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't know what ever happened to that. I had bought the whole Milton Friedman free to choose like 15 years ago, and I kept sharing it with somebody, and I never got it back.
Yeah.
I was okay with that, though.
It was on DVD, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was on DVD. But you can find it on YouTube now.
Right.
And it's a great thing. I mean, it was done in the 70s, but the thing is, it doesn't matter whether it was done in the 70s, the 80s, and 90s. Economics doesn't change. And economics is how people respond to incentive and disincentive.
Yep.
And you've got probably every single country that has had some government or some politician that believes, well, I can change economics. Well, you can't. You can manipulate an economy. You can enact proposals that will, because of less regulation, fewer taxes,
right,
that will make, an economy do better, but you can't change economics. Right. Anything you do, you've got to keep economics in your mind, which is how do people relate to incentive and disincentive?
Right. Yeah.
And so...
And on the virtue thing, the rewarding virtue thing, I would add that if you look at a capitalist society, if you look at capitalism and what it brings about, what it basically forces into play. We saw this with Saudi Arabia, with the talk of the Crown Prince saying, and I think all of that is pretty much gone now, but there was talk early on that, well, we're going to have to change because we may not be the world's biggest oil producer. We're going to have to produce other things. And there's going to have to be a greater, basically, things in our culture we're going to have to be more open to in our culture so that as we produce other things, the world will be our customer as they are with oil. And that was the sentiment. So if you talk about the cooperation, that it's voluntary cooperation where, all right, you've got something, I have my money that represents my work, and now I want to take that money, and if I believe that is the value of what I need or want, then I'm going to spend that with you. And so while it may not be a true virtue, you may not be able to say, well, that's not out of the goodness of your heart. Well, nothing is in that case. You're going to shop with your self-interest. You're going to shop to take care of your family. You're going to shop in these other interests, but it still is that voluntary cooperation that tempers many other considerations because you have choices and you can decide, well, your widget's too expensive or it's too crappy. I don't want to buy it.
Well, that's why I think it is virtuous.
Yeah.
Where socialism is not. Capitalism is moral. Why is it? Everybody involved in it is a volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
You exchange. Think about this. It's not somebody telling you, here's what we're going to do.
Right.
It's,
right.
Would you like to buy this?
Right.
And the way I've always explained it is, everybody right now, stop what you're doing and look at your surroundings, everything. I'm looking at my computer in front of me, the microphone in front of me, these papers here, my keys to my car, this stapler. Even
you have a stapler?
My stapler, my blood sugar monitor. I got a doctor's appointment in a month, so as I get close to a month, I take my blood sugar, and the only 8-hour fast I can take is before, when I go to sleep in the afternoon, then wake up and come into work, and right before the show, I took my blood because I can't do it during the day. But everything in front of us here, everything I'm looking at, every bit of clothes I'm wearing, everything, and look around, everything was done for the profit motive. Well, that's bad. What do you mean? You were happy and you voluntarily bought it.
Mm-hmm.
And most things that you bought, you were happy with. I believe that is part of a virtuous society where everybody voluntarily, because of their own personal interest, cooperate with other people and gladly buy things from them.
Yeah.
You know, you look at what greed is. Greed is Oxford Dictionary, intense and selfish desire for something, especially wealth, power, or food. Well, what keeps greed in line in capitalism? This is why it's completely false, and the DNC was doing it last night, again, blaming the corporations for inflation. We'll tell you why that's false coming up. 866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Yeah, so playing that cut from the Phil Donahue show from 1979 with Milton Friedman talking about capitalism and greed.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about it coming up following the top of the hour because at the DNC, that's what they're talking about.
Right.
That inflation is caused by greed of corporations. Now, universally, they have been hit on that because of Harris's price control.
Right, yeah.
On groceries,
right.
Universally,
yep.
that it's wrong.
Right.
And I think one of the best things that Milton Friedman said to Phil Donahue was, you're trying to make the case that political motivation is somehow more moral than economic motivation.
Right.
Well, he was willing to debate that, as we are.
Right.
Which we will do.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Turn on the microphone, Gary. All across America. We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Fact is, that would be embarrassing, except only you know that.
Yeah, I'm the only one that knows. I'm not even sure that I was paying attention.
When we don't turn on our microphones and we start talking, it's like, oops.
Yeah.
That's why. Just so you know, this is not like WKRP or any other radio, TV show you've ever seen. We actually have to wear headphones. So, just so you know.
Yeah.
Remember, they didn't always wear headphones.
Even with playing records, they didn't always wear headphones.
Yes, exactly.
Which is weird to me.
Yes. All right, so we got into the discussion of greed.
Yeah.
Because of the Phil Donahue cut of Milton Friedman. We wanted to play a cut from Phil Donahue. And he was questioning Milton Friedman, the late economist. But you could tell he was intently listening, going, wow, I could ask questions. I don't know how to argue with this.
Right. Yeah.
And one of the things that I thought was incredible, it's something that always stuck with me from the first time I saw that, and I can't remember what the first time I saw that. I probably saw it live and went, whoa, where he said that Donahue is basically making the assumption that political self-interest is more noble than economic self-interest.
Right.
And so he was playing the questioning game back and forth. He didn't get into the specifics of it, but I always thought that was just a great thing to say because it makes people think. Because Donahue was trying to, corporations are greedy. Well, are they? And again, we don't really look at definition of words anymore, do we?
No, we don't. No, and it doesn't matter if we do because the media and the left are changing definitions on the fly.
Right. Greed is, by the Oxford Dictionary, an intense and selfish desire for something, especially wealth, power, or food. Well, how can you have greed in capitalism, where everything is voluntary? It's even the thing where they talk about, gouging, which, again, I really wonder whether, did anybody bring that up last night? I did not hear it from one speech.
I didn't see any headlines on it. I didn't watch the whole thing live.
I did see about the corporations and the greed and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And she's using part of the whole greed thing to promote her 28, increasing the corporate tax rate.
Right. Yeah.
But then again, in order to push your political agenda, if you lie and say that we're going to tax corporations because it will come from them when you're actually taxing the public and hurting the poor and middle class the most with a stealth tax, isn't that greed? Right. Isn't that selfish? And I say, isn't that selfish because you're lying about who pays for it.
Right.
And so when you talk about political self-interest versus economic self-interest, in economic self-interest in the United States, you need to do it in the competitive marketplace, and you need to do it with a certain amount of integrity and honesty, because if you don't, the government will come after you. Where the government can take your money, they can use it, they can lie about it, and they face no consequences whatsoever.
Right.
When he talked about, does a president, when it comes to, greed in corporations versus government, and they talked about, well, you can be, in capitalism, you can be chosen more not on the merit, but what word did he use? Not merit, but influence that you have. He goes, well, wait a minute. Does any president choose? Do presidents choose based on what is politically best for them? Or are they picking that person out of meritocracy and or virtue? Well, let's look at the Democratic Party. Why is she there? Nobody knows where she stands on the issues, so why is she there? Donald Trump, whether you like him or dislike him, we know why he's there. We know the specific things that he stands for issue-wise. If we didn't know, if it wasn't so attractive to the American public as the polls show, where Donald Trump stands on the issues, he would not be the nominee right now.
Oh, yeah. That's absolutely the case.
He would not be the nominee if roughly on the major issues of where he stands, you have 2/3 of America stand with him. Now, he does represent other things like lawfare that other candidates, Republican candidates, might not be able to bring. And we said this yesterday when somebody was making the case, well, you know, if it was some other Republican, he'd be up 10 points. And I said, I don't know that.
Right.
Because the one person who has shown the American public who is actually a victim of the weaponization of government, it's Trump.
Oh, by far. You go back to the beginning of the entire Russian hoax thing and all the way through the lawfare that is going on right now.
And how,
and he's the poster child.
And how do I know that? That's why I'm voting for Trump in this election. I'm not voting for the day-to-day issues that we talk about here. I'm voting because of the weaponization of government. I'm voting because of the authoritarianism, the identity politics, racism, the radical transgender misogyny, and not just those particular issues, but how the government has tried to pass them by not going through the constitutional process and violating the Constitution. That's why I'm voting for Trump. We've already said it. If Trump gets into office, just like last time, we're going to have differences of opinion with him. And sometimes it gets extremely passionate for anybody who has listened to us in the past.
Even with the same goals, it's the approach to how to accomplish those goals.
Right.
And that's something I've had with every president I've voted for. It's, all right, look, I think you need to be doing this.
But when it comes to greed, when you live in a system where every company, they can't force you to buy a product. No. You have to voluntarily say, this is what I want. And that's why when you had Milton Friedman come out and said, my God, it's so obvious the system that works is capitalism. Now, in any human endeavor, no human endeavor is perfect. But what is the kind of society...
Except for Red Eye Radio.
What'd I say?
No human endeavor is perfect, but Red Eye Radio is perfect.
Well, no, I am. You're not. And so...
No. In order for Red Eye to be perfect, we both have to be perfect. That's just the way it works, see? Symbiotic.
Oh, okay. Well, then you got in the way of my arrogance.
Now I have to Google the definition of symbiotic. I'm not even sure if I used that word right.
Yeah, you got in the way of my arrogance.
You're right, actually. You're perfect. It's
I'm
me.
right and you're right.
I'm the problem. I just realized that. 28 years this December. Holy crap, I'm totally the problem.
Really? 28 on the show?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, going back to the old show.
Yeah.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wow.
But when you look at the two, when you look at government, for example, when you see you could never get away if you were a head of a corporation and you said the border was secure, you'd probably end up in jail.
Yeah, right.
If you did the things that government does, the way government lies to you, and you were in a corporation, you would be in jail. Corporations exist in a completely different legal sphere than government, and the fact that the public is still willing to demonize, I'll say it this way, because if a company does something wrong, you can demonize it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've got no problem with that at all. Somebody breaks the law. I'm not going to defend anybody who breaks the law, but think about it. It is the people that we trust the least who lie to us more who are the ones who demonize corporations as greedy in order for the entity of government that people trust the least and want monopolistic power over everything, they tell you that corporations that deal in the competitive marketplace are the problems, and their monopoly taking it over and controlling it is the best way to go. No wonder Democrats think that the people that vote for them are complete idiots.
Yeah.
Because when you actually look at it and break it down And when you look at the history of free markets and capitalism versus socialism and communism, it's not even close. Well, China's a communist nation. No, they're not. They partly are. They're part communist, but where they're succeeding is where they allow capitalism to come in.
Right.
But one of the problems is once you get people, you can't control people, and they become rich or they become middle class and acquire wealth, they acquire influence, which is why truly communist states like the former Soviet Union couldn't allow that to happen unless you were in the Politburo.
Right, yeah.
That was it. Everybody lived the same horrible life. And they collapsed upon themselves.
Yep.
China saw and says, okay, we got to be able to keep this communist government. What do we do? Oh, okay, initiate capitalistic principles over here and let more people keep their money. Yeah. And that's the problem with China, and that's the problem they will always face. And then, again, their economy is not what it was 15 years ago. Why? It's very tough to run a communist capitalist state.
Right. Just ask Joe Biden.
But it's just amazing that we take, greed, because we've said it before. You want greed. You want greed? Greed is wanting someone else to pay for your college. That's greed. Greed is you wanting someone else to pay for your house. That's greed. Greed is the pathology of dependency that is growing and continues to grow in the United States of America, that what is yours is mine.
Yeah.
The ultimate greed comes from the socialist communist mindset that believes that everything is everybody's, irrespective of the work put in to get it. Because then what that means is your work has no value. Which means if your work has no value...
Star Trek.
If
no money, that means your work has no value. How do you have rank?
Right, we always
captain.
We've torn apart Star Trek a bunch of times.
I am the captain now.
And I tell you, we talked about Star Trek, and the way we talked about it, we actually got girls because of it. By the way, you know where I got that from? Because there's that chart, and it says if you're a Star Trek fan,
yeah,
and it says all the colors like red is you get girls, money,
right,
whatever, and
right.
then the pie chart is completely none of the colors match that. Like you get fame, money, and girls,
exactly.
And the pie chart's completely different colors.
Yeah, but then when we start talking about the band Rush, we lose the girls. So yeah,
that's
sorry, that's the trade-off.
Except that one Obama advisor. Did you ever see the Rush last tour documentary? One of the big women in the fan club was a member of the Obama administration.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
They didn't get into talking about Neil Peart's libertarianism and
right.
Ayn Rand book reading.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, they didn't want to open that.
No, they didn't want to open that in the documentary. But, yeah, an intense and selfish desire for something, especially wealth, power, or food. Well, that's what it is when you say, I think you ought to pay for my college.
Right.
Or I think you ought to pay for this. Or you start putting...
I gained from the money that I borrowed, and now you need to pay that debt.
Yeah.
I get the gain.
Yeah, you get the
You're
debt.
burdened with the debt.
That's greed.
Wow.
Why? Because we're going by the definition. We're not just making crap up as we go along,
right,
as the left does.
Right.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. Due to safety concerns, many motor carriers have policies that limit or prohibit the use of cruise control. If your motor carrier does allow you to use cruise control, you should only use it in good driving conditions during daylight hours and on roads that have light traffic, few curves or hills, and a consistent speed limit. Never use cruise control when operating in adverse driving conditions, including wet, icy, or slippery roads, during rush hour in heavy traffic or on congested highways, at night, or when you're tired or fatigued. During all of these driving scenarios, you want to be controlling and adjusting your speed as you drive instead of having to suddenly brake if you encounter an obstacle. In the case of a slippery road surface, you want to be able to slow your vehicle by not accelerating instead of using the brakes whenever possible. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Now let's look at the Trump campaign. What's the Trump campaign doing? What's the headline? Let me see.
All right.
Do we agree? Does Red Eye agree with the philosophy of the Trump campaign and what they're planning on doing now? You ready? Here's a headline.
Okay.
Trump campaign plans policy-heavy offensive in battleground states to counter-program the DNC. Let me check in with my co-host over there. Any disagreement with that?
Read that again.
Trump campaign plans policy-heavy offensive in battleground states to counter-program the DNC. I'm in agreement with it.
To counter-program, to basically work against the headlines they will be getting this week.
Yeah, I didn't even care about that. I just cared about the first part of it. Trump campaign plans policy-heavy offensive.
Well, actually, I was wondering, because, I was wondering what they would do. I knew they would do something this week in order to make some noise. But it doesn't matter when you do it. You need to be. By the way, I would also continue that after the DNC. How about I'll just pick an obscure date, November 5th, all the way until then.
I think so.
It's what you do. You just boom, 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 boom. You put it out there, and you don't need to. By the way, after day one, don't try and steal any headlines because the Democrats are going to make plenty on their own.
I like this. The focus on economic and energy policy on Monday in Pennsylvania is designed to draw a contrast with Harris's destructive visions on both major issues. Campaign sources. You don't need to be a source. You can go public on stuff like this.
Someone who's familiar with the campaign.
Right. You don't have to be anonymous. You can say Trump's going to focus on economic and energy policy, that the Harris campaign and what Harris and Biden believe is insane, and we're going to promote this, and my name is Joe Smith from the Trump campaign. You don't need to be a source. He's
literally going to be advertising it.
Yes.
It's okay to say, you don't have to be a source. Someone familiar with the campaign.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I'm just going through a ton of different audio cuts here. Just amazing last night, in case you're just waking up now because you went to bed early and didn't know that Biden did not start speaking at the DNC until 11:30 Eastern time last night. They did not want him anywhere near prime time. I saw Meghan McCain, basically say that the Democratic Party is the DNC is a bunch of a-holes for not, for doing this to Biden. What are you talking about? He's agreeing He's agreeing. Well, I mean, he was forced out, but he's agreeing to pretend he's not angry about it.
Right.
And everybody knows he is.
Right.
Wow. Here was one moment that, and again, nobody watched this, but still, if this is the narrative, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. You and I believe that I will say after today. I originally said after Monday, but after today, because they'll have the nice things to say about him today. But by Wednesday, don't be surprised if you see the Harris campaign try to completely separate themselves from Biden.
You said that, was it last week or week before?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's interesting. But now I'd be shocked if they didn't start their own television or campaign in some areas at midnight as soon as Biden was walking off stage in order to do that. So, yeah, I expect them to start that and build it up basically between now and Thursday night when she's on the stage.
Because here's number one, because she's saying that she's going to basically do different things by having the surrogates, the anonymous surrogates out there saying that she has changed her mind on everything from fracking, and all that. But then Biden said this last night. Will she say these words like Biden did?
I mean, Kamala and me. Just think about it. COVID no longer controls our lives. We've gone from economic crisis to the strongest economy in the entire world.
Will she say that? We've gone from an economic crisis to the strongest economy in the entire world. The American public does not believe that because of inflation.
Right.
Will she say that? Because in order to separate herself from Biden, she is going to have to, or the campaign, if she decides never to get do an interview, she's going to have to say what Biden didn't work. It wasn't that's what Mark Cuban was doing the other day. Mark Cuban was he put up who controls the executive branch. I'm paraphrasing here, but I'm accurate on it. Who controls the executive branch, Joe Biden or Kamala Harris? Now, why do you do that? Because Kamala Harris is different than Joe Biden, and therefore she's going to do different things. Right?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out where they go.
Why? No, I don't.
No, you're right.
Well,
but it's like,
we've seen where they went. She becomes the presumptive nominee. The first thing that we hear is on a variety of different issues, which is why a couple of weeks ago we came up with the whole Kamaga thing. Is she Kamaga or is she Marxist or Kamaga or
Kamala
or communism?
Yeah,
and so you've got and that's because of what she's doing. The anonymous surrogates went out there going, no, she doesn't believe, she believes in fracking now. No, she's tougher on the border than Trump is. Well, nobody believes that. But that's what she's saying. How does she separate herself, or how does she make it an advantage? Well, she can't. There's no way she can make it an advantage to tie herself to Biden. I asked the question, and halfway through the question, I said there's no way she can do it. But how does she separate from him without being totally mocked and being viewed as completely and totally unbelievable? How? Oh, by the way, I'm not. I sound like I was yelling at you, like, give me the answer, Eric. It was rhetorical.
Well, I mean, there really is no play. They've already done everything in order to get Joe out of the way. Joe Biden is done politically. It's over.
Right.
We were thinking maybe they would, have him on yesterday morning at 7 a.m. We had no idea they were going to move him up until 11:30 Eastern. But then, of course, wait a minute. We want to make sure that there's no audience left.
Well, we didn't know. We didn't know because they had announced that Joe Biden would be, speaking on Monday.
Right.
And we had thought maybe 7 a.m.
7 a.m., yeah.
We didn't know that he would be speaking on Tuesday.
Exactly, which was technically true. By the way, one quote that we haven't played for him, and I was trying to find the audio from it. I can't find it, but I did think this quote was interesting when he said, "I'm smart, not like everybody says." Okay, Fredo. It's I could run against Trump. Come on, Mike. It's the problem is that the only thing you can do if you're the Harris campaign in order to put space between you and Joe is, number one, put him on Monday and you're on Thursday. So there's number one. They did that. But also, you don't mention anything. You really don't mention anything. You can't mention anything current because it all either belongs to Biden, which means it belongs to you. You honestly pretend you're not the sitting vice president, and you only talk about the things you want to do. She finally floated something. She actually floated something out of the playbook, higher corporate taxes. Now, she fumbled it out of the gate with price controls, as you said, across the board, left and right. What are you doing? But you go down this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do. Because I don't know where else you go in order to separate yourself, put distance between yourself and Joe Biden. You basically are just going to have to act as the nominee and not the current vice president, because when you say you're the current vice president, instantly you're tied to Joe Biden. I have no idea. You just talk about, these are the things we're going to do, we're going to do, and at some point she's going to have to sit down with the media, or not.
I got this tweet here, interesting. Kamala is the no-labels party candidate, for your information. That's why she won't answer questions, and so is Trump, I believe.
What?
I know. That's why I had to read it.
Yeah, not sure what any of that means.
I have no idea what it means.
Yeah.
No idea.
But
except the fact that it's got nothing to do with the no-labels party. She will not let you know what she thinks. I understand the tie-in. No Labels would never tell you where they stood on the issues, because if you, and I did see somebody say that in the Kamala Harris campaign the other day, that, well, we're not going to, if we tell you what we believe, then it's going to be attacked immediately.
Right.
Well, it doesn't matter. Anything's attacked. It's whether you can withstand the attack. So I understand that. I don't know why whoever wrote this says that Trump is, and so is Trump, I believe. You would be wrong on that. It's very clear where Trump stands on most issues.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
In fact, that's why he's there. He's on a variety of issues. So to try to have a moral equivalency between Kamala and Trump, we thank you for your tweet, Kennedy supporter.
Yeah. It could be Kennedy himself.
Well, no, come on. I mean, you can't make, if you want to make the case against, I can understand the case for Kamala. She's a no parties candidate. Well, yeah, I understand the tie-in. They wouldn't tell you where they stand. She won't tell you where she stands. And on the things that are most controversial, she actually hasn't said it. The campaign has.
Yeah.
Well, that has actually gone farther than the No Labels party. But Trump, to try to tie Trump into the No Labels party of not basically saying that he won't tell you what he believes, I disagree with that wholeheartedly. We know exactly where he stands since Donahue first came on the air.
Yeah.
He's held most of the same opinions.
Right. Yep. And, he's been president before.
Yeah.
There's that.
and there's that, yeah. So,
but you just basically ignore the whole Biden thing. Biden goes home to the beach every weekend from now until January 20th. And you don't talk about it.
and if you're Harris, you don't appear at any public function with him from this point on.
Oh, no, yeah, none of that.
Nothing.
She stays on the road. Yeah, far away. And you hope there isn't a geopolitical situation that requires Biden
I was going to say,
to tend to it, right?
What's the over and under on news stories saying who's actually running the country?
Well, it's that question's been out there for a while. So, why would they? And more and more people are asking it now, I think. But the media's chasing her, and they're not chasing him. Is anyone even showing up to the dailies for Karine Jean-Pierre? Anyone in the room?
No, and we'll get. Don't worry, we'll get to here in the near future the entire thing of the Republicans coming out and saying, nope, here are his impeachable offenses, but it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah,
and I said the day that he said I'm done, none of that matters politically. It's not going to matter even legally because nothing's going to happen to him.
Right.
At this age.
Right.
But it's interesting to show what the Democrats have been hiding all this time.
Mm-hmm.
And it does show you the horrendous, the horrendous taking advantage of a political. It's the worst thing you can do as a politician, make money for you and your family through influence peddling.
Yeah.
And the Democrats don't care. And I know that the Republicans did that and put it out on that day to make the contrast with everybody cheering Biden. They're cheering the guy who used his political career to make his family millionaires.
Yeah. To that effect, it works for you.
Yeah.
But I don't expect them to pursue it. It's not going to go the full.
Because Democrats don't care. The Democratic voter, the majority of Democratic voters do not care if their president or the person that they vote for is crooked.
Well, I halfway expect now, after he's done on stage a few hours ago, for other members of the Democratic Party to come out and maybe in the House and go, Hakeem Jeffries, no, maybe we should look at Biden on impeachment.
Jamie Raskin comes out.
Exactly. Well, because it kind of hit me yesterday as a joke.
No. Kamala Harris comes out. I can't believe. That's how you separate yourself from
there
Biden.
We go. We just answered
our own question there. Yes.
See, that's how it works. We just workshop this into an answer.
Yes, that's how you separate yourself from Biden. He used it.
But it starts with Raskin and Jeffries sometime later today. We've looked at what our colleagues on the other side of the aisle have presented, and maybe there's something there. And then Kamala, maybe there's something there. By Thursday, they have a vote.
The convention ends Thursday night. She's installed as the new president on Friday.
She's sworn in on stage Thursday night.
866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Wow, so Monday passes of the DNC, and again, it's a Monday. It's not that important, but I figured a couple of days this week, and probably Wednesday or Thursday, I might be on the air saying, okay, the political advantage goes to, the party that's having the the convention on the last 2 days. But as of Monday, it was still a Trump day yesterday.
Oh, man. And I'm trying, in my mind, I'm doing the same thing. How do they build to a point that gives them a political bump? The Democrats.
Yeah, because they haven't had one in, 15 days, 16 days?
Yeah.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.